Imagine a trust fund, carefully built to last generations, being completely wiped out by a single disastrous investment. Add to that trustees who outright refuse to release a dime to desperate beneficiaries and block all access to the financial records. This is the exact scenario presented in the Pavati test problem. We have an estate managed by trustees Aram and Deepa, who handed full asset control to Wizzo Finance, resulting in an 85% loss when Wizzo crashed. To untangle the legal liabilities here, we first map the architecture. Pavati is the settlor. Aram and Deepa hold the legal title as trustees. Krishnan is the life tenant, entitled to the income, and the grandchildren, 20-year-old Mahika and 12-year-old Rohan, are the remaindermen, waiting for the capital. Within this structure, we have three distinct failure points. First, the liquidation of the appointed agent, Wizzo Finance. Second, the absurd concentration of 85% of the trust in a single .com stock. And third, the trustees' hardline refusal to advance capital or share trust accounts with Mahika and Rohan. The quickest way to fail an analysis of this scenario is to look at these disasters and immediately declare a blanket breach of trust. That skips the actual mechanics of equity. To assign liability in the Pavati Trust, we have to systematically define the statutory boundaries of investment, trace the strict limits of delegation, and separate mandatory legal duties from discretionary powers. Modern trust law gives trustees broad operational authority. Under Section 3 of the Trustee Act 2000, they have the power to make almost any investment, as if they owned the assets absolutely. And under Section 11, they can delegate their asset management functions to an agent, like Wizzo Finance. But delegation is heavily regulated. Section 15 requires trustees to execute a written agreement and provide the agent with a formal written policy statement. That statement must explicitly outline the trust's investment objectives, balancing the need for Krishnan's income against the remaindermen's capital growth. Even with an agent in place, the investments chosen must still satisfy the standard investment criteria under Section 4. This means evaluating whether an asset class is suitable for the specific trust and ensuring the portfolio is adequately diversified to mitigate risk. In the Nestle v. National Westminster Bank decision, the bank failed to conduct regular reviews, severely underperforming the market, yet the claimant lost. Lord Justice Stoughton noted incompetence does not equal a breach of trust. Beneficiaries must prove the specific failure caused quantifiable financial loss. The duty of care is strictly financial. In Cowan v. Scargill, trustees for the Liners Pension Fund tried to block investments on ethical grounds. The court ruled they must put personal and political views aside. Acting in the beneficiary's best interests means prioritizing their best financial interests. Applying these statutory standards reveals the specific nature of Aram and Deepa's failure. Allowing Wizzo to concentrate 85% of the trust into a single .com stock violates the Section 4 duty to diversify. This is where many analyses go off the rails. You cannot argue that Aram and Deepa are vicariously liable for Wizzo's terrible stock picking. The Trustee Act 2000 abolished automatic liability for the defaults of an agent. Instead, liability rests entirely on the trustee's personal duty of care under Section 1. Beneficiaries must prove Aram and Deepa breached their statutory duty when they initially selected Wizzo, perhaps ignoring those poor online reviews, or when they failed their ongoing duty to monitor the agent's disastrous investment strategy under Section 22. That covers the lost money. Now we evaluate the second issue. Mahika needs a deposit for a house. Rohan's mother is asking for school fees, and the trustees have denied both requests. This graphic contrasts trust income and capital. Since Krishnan holds the right to the income, Mahika and Rohan are remaindermen, whose interest is strictly in the capital. Any early release of funds must be processed under Section 32, governing the advancement of capital. This excerpt detailing the Pilkington case provides the legal test for when capital can be released. Viscount Radcliffe established that an advancement must be any use of the money that will improve the material situation of the beneficiary. Buying property for Mahika and paying school fees for Rohan easily satisfy this advancement or benefit criteria. They are textbook examples of material improvement. Satisfying the criteria does not force the trustees to release the money. Section 32 provides a legal power, not a duty. Trustees cannot be compelled to exercise a power. they only have an obligation to consider it. There is also a structural roadblock. Taking capital out of the trust reduces the overall principal, which directly reduces the income generated for the life tenant. Because of this, Section 32 requires Krishnan's explicit written consent before any capital can be advanced to his children. Aram and Deepa possess the power to release these funds, but they have absolutely no duty to do so. Unless the beneficiaries can prove the refusal was capricious or irrational, the court will protect the trustee's discretion. Frustrated by these rejections, Mahika demands to see the trust accounts and wants the exact reasons behind the trustee's decisions. As a rule, trustees do not have to explain their reasoning for discretionary decisions. However, beneficiaries are entitled to see core documents like the trust accounts. If the trustees stonewall, the court holds inherent jurisdiction under Schmidt v. Rosewood Trust to force document disclosure. To collapse the trust under Saunders v. Vautier, beneficiaries must clear 3 hurdles: act unanimously, be absolutely entitled, and be sui juris, over 18. Mapped against the Pavati Trust, this matrix fails. Rohan is 12. The group is not sui juris. Because of Rohan's age, the beneficiaries have 0 direct power to remove Aram and Deepa. Their only option is a formal application to the court under Section 41 of the Trustee Act 1925, asking a judge to step in and remove the trustees on the grounds that their gross mismanagement of Wizzo makes it inexpedient for them to remain in office. To summarize the Pavati autopsy, on the issue of the Wizzo disaster, Aram and Deepa face personal liability for the missing funds, not because they are strictly responsible for Wizzo's actions, but because they failed their own statutory duty of care in monitoring the agent. On the cash demands, the trustees are protected. Releasing capital to Mahika and Rohan is a discretionary power that requires the life tenant's consent, and equity will not compel trustees to exercise it. And on the issue of removal, Rohan's minority strips the beneficiaries of their direct firing powers, forcing them to route their grievances through the court. Equity enforces exacting compliance when it comes to a trustee's duties, but it fiercely protects the independence of their discretionary powers. The distinction between what a trustee must do and what they may do defines the operational logic of every trust.